Hey Sugar Snaps, welcome to the Textile Indie YouTube channel. If you're new here, my name is Brittany. Welcome in. Today I'm going to be joined by my mom, or Sherry, and she's going to show us how to do wooden bead trees. So let's get started.
Well, hello there. Let's talk about wooden beads. Wooden beads this year are all the rage, and because of that, you can find them now, right now, in two places. I got this set in the garland section for fall. I was in there the other day and they have all of the holiday decor out, and they're just coming out with all kinds of wooden beads. Some are painted and multicolored, but this natural bead is really popular right now. You can also find them in the jewelry section pretty much all the time, whether it's trending or not. They've, I think, always had these wooden beads and probably always will. And they come in a big multi-pack of, it looks like 2 different sizes. These were $7.50 and this set was $5.99, so it's pretty comparable in price and material. So today we're going to make a wooden tree. This is something that I haven't been able to find at the store, but I have seen all over on Pinterest. And I learned some things, what we call maybe a Pinterest fail. And one of those things is that it usually will call for a 16 gauge wire to make these standing trees. This is a 14 gauge wire. So I started out with a 16 gauge wire, much thinner than this, and my tree just immediately collapsed on itself. The weight of the beads just made it not a tree. So I went back to the drawing board, I went to the craft store, and I found this 14 gauge wire. It works, it holds its shape, but if you set it down, it kind of lists to one side. Looks a little sad. And I wanted this tree to be able to sit on Brittany's Christmas shelf. This natural bead is her aesthetic, and I really wanted it to stand up. So I went back to the craft store to see if I could find some wire that was more sturdy, and it doesn't seem that craft stores carry anything stiffer. So I stopped at the hardware store, went to the electrical section, and they had this. This is a 10 gauge wire. But as we mentioned in the button video a few days ago, wire gauge and stiffness don't necessarily coincide. It seems to have more to do with the metal that it's made out of. And as we said before, we haven't figured this out and we're not experts. So I just went by feel, and this one I could tell crimping it or giving it a little bend in the store that this was going to hold its shape like an armature. And so I got 2 feet of this. This is 2 feet, this spiral, and brought it home. And so we're going to demonstrate how to do one of these bead trees. We've tested it out with our beads, and it does stand up, it does hold its shape, and it will sit on a shelf and stay put. So how did I
become in this little accordion?
Yeah, accordion. Now, one thing we did think of, and we didn't go buy it, but there is a smaller bead you can get. I think they're 5 millimeter, but smaller than this size. And if you can see my hand and get an idea of what I'm saying here. And you went with a very small wooden bead. You could make a Christmas tree ornament out of this and just hang it. This is really too big for a Christmas tree, but you could make smaller ones and they would be really cute. And you could use your 16 gauge wire. That would work. Smaller beads, smaller wire. Okay, so how did I get my spiral? You can use one of those paper mache, little paper mache cones that you can get at the craft store, but I just took a piece of cardstock. It's just your, just your standard cardstock, and I just eyeballed it and made a cone. It doesn't have to be perfect. It really just needs to stand up. Turned it into a cone and used a binder clip to hold it up. Let's put the binder clip on the edge just to give me the shape. And then I use this as a general guide to start to wrap my wire around and give me a cone shape. So there's our tree. Now,
were you able to hand twist this, or did you have to use tools?
Yes, I did hand twist it, and this project is very forgiving, so it doesn't have to be perfectly smooth. If you get little crimps or, kind of right angles and bends in it, it's not going to show up once you get the beads on. So yeah. Again, forgiving.
And the holes in the beads are pretty large, so you can kind of work with the bends and
plenty
things.
Of room. Now, if I were finishing this off, I would put a big glob of hot glue inside and hold this, but I'm not going to finish this one because I want to take it home. So I'm just going to faux make it. Brittany, you want to help me put the big beads on? This goes pretty fast. This is actually another project that you could do with a child.
It feels like one of those kid toys they are at doctor's offices.
Or grandma's house. I have one.
You have one? Oh boy.
Now, one thing Brittany and I thought of after I test this, and this is one reason I'm not going to glue it finished, I saw copper wire in the electrical department at the hardware store, and I think that is going to be gorgeous. So I'm going to go ahead and get some copper wire and turn this into a copper tree. This green is fine, but I think especially for Brittany's house, the copper wire is just going to look beautiful. However, I wanted to make sure it worked because this wire was 74 cents a foot and the copper wire is $2.99. So big difference in price. Yeah, but it is going to show through, as you can see it peeking through. Yeah. So I think it'll be worth the extra expense and it will be quite pretty. And then at the end, I'm going to use the smaller bead, and then I'm going to look around when I do my permanent one and put some kind of a star, glue a star to the top of this.
Maybe like a big bead or something.
Yeah, that's something that you'll see on Pinterest.
A little wooden piece. A lot of craft stores have their wooden piece section. You could probably find a little wooden star cutout and glue that to the top.
Now the trick is once you're done, you want to mold it so that your base is nice and steady. So this is sitting nice and steady. It's not going to flop over easily. And then you'll just kind of adjust and bend, kind of like you're doing a little physics art project of DNA or something here. But you can just bend it and morph it so that it's sitting straight and it's balanced and it doesn't tip or lean over one direction or the other. So there you have this darling tree that you can buy red wire at the hardware store, green wire, or like I said, you could just go all out and get some beautiful copper wire. Mm-hmm. And you have a nice, very neutral, natural looking Christmas display. The smaller bead available at the craft store. You can make different size trees. Okay, so our beads. Another project that I'm going to work on, at my house, I like to do a red and white theme every other year, and I have a supply of these beautiful wooden cranberry beads that I think I've had for at least 30 years.
Since I was born.
I think I've had them as long as I've had you, or maybe the year that you were born, and they look as good as new. They're classic bright red beads. So I want to do a garland with white and red. I'm going to cut one of those strands apart and rebead it with white and red beads. And I picked up this tip from my mom, who was making some kind of a rainbow project with wooden beads, and rather than painting each bead individually by hand, which
sounds so tedious,
taken forever, she came up with this great hack that we're going to test now, where she just poured her beads into a Ziploc bag.
Don't forget to take the silica out.
Yeah, that could be a mess. Mm-hmm. You don't want those beads to get moldy. And we are trying this for the first time on camera, so let's see how it goes. So she just poured her acrylic in.
This is just crafting acrylic paint, liquid form.
Doesn't have to be fancy or expensive. Technically, you could probably just use some white house paint. Latex paint would work just fine. You might want to water.
The Restore Center or like Habitat for Humanity and get a bucket of reusable paint or whatever you call it. But
anything in your stash.
Yeah. Okay,
what I'm not sure of is, well, we need to water this down a little bit to get coverage. But we're going to go ahead now and just gush this around, shake it up, and see what happens.
That looks pretty effective.
Can't see what's happening now. Well, they have a bit of a texture, so I think I'm going to dump them out and we'll dry them.
Oh.
And if I decide that I like the little bit of the mottled texture,
you always do a second coat.
Yeah, do a second coat. But they're kind of rubbing up against each other and leaving a little mark. Let's see inside. But we did get complete coverage. You could definitely water the acrylic paint down if you wanted more of a whitewash look, more of a natural whitewash, and I think that would be pretty too. Yeah. But I'm definitely going for a pure white snowball effect. Okay, Brittany found me a tray. We're going to dump it out on a piece of parchment or wax paper. Okay.
Probably don't want them touching either.
Yes.
They'll stick.
So maybe in retrospect, having a cookie sheet ready.
Yeah. Plastic wrap would probably work better than parchment paper too, now that I think about it. They might stick to the parchment paper and they probably peel off of plastic wrap.
Okay. We will let these dry and let you know how it turns out. But I think overall this is going to be a great technique and definitely worth playing around with over painting these by hand.
Yeah.
Because you'd just be like, I don't have time for that. So there we go.
Yeah.
Well, I hope you have fun with some bead crafts. And again, you can make Christmas tree ornaments. You could create a circle and make beaded wreaths. You can use them to make different colored garlands. And of course, you can make the tabletop standing beaded tree. So hopefully we've given you some inspiration and some ideas, and you can incorporate this, what happens to be trendy, but I think is a really timeless material and craft that you can use in your holiday decor.
Thanks so much for joining us in this video. Check the description below for resources and tools and materials list, and we will see you in the next one. Happy making. Bye.
Bye.